This is Humans.
Humans.
I'm Hank Green. It may, to some extent, still be a bug's world. They're around 50% of land animal biomass, 66% of all described species, probably like 80% of all animal species in total, and an overwhelming majority of individual land animals. There's a lot of bugs. And when I first started doing science communication, I found that people could tell me a whole lot about certain bugs, but almost nothing about other bugs. And the reason for this is simple. We know a lot about ticks and mosquitoes and pine bark beetles because they impact us. We need to study them because they cause problems for us. But that does not mean that the other bugs don't contain quadrillions of mysteries. It's just that we mostly have no reason to look. Bugs are one of the ways that I realized that what we don't know still vastly outweighs what we do. But bugs and us, we live in each other's worlds. We pave and poison and remake the land for agriculture. They eat our food and sting our children and pollinate our orchards and vector diseases that have killed billions of us. And they were biting people before people were even Homo sapiens. So we have this strange, very old, very ongoing relationship with about 80% of animal life on the planet, in which sometimes we kill them and sometimes they kill us. But we don't really understand each other. I mean, they don't understand us at all. But some people need to be the people paying attention to them. And Jerome Goddard is one of those people. He is an extension professor of medical and veterinary entomology at Mississippi State University, where he spent more than 30 years studying the bugs that hurt us. Before that, he was the state medical entomologist for Mississippi. Before that, he was a U.S. Air Force entomologist. And yes, the Armed Forces has a surprising number of entomologists. And when you think about that for a second, it makes a lot of sense. His textbook, The Goddard Guide to Arthropods of Medical Importance, is now in its 7th edition and sits in doctors' offices around the world. He's also the author of 10 novels and several children's books, and a memoir called Faith versus Science, The Unnecessary Dichotomy. And most importantly to me, he is a TikToker who teaches me about bugs. Dr. Jerome Goddard, welcome to Humans.
Glad to be here, Hank. I've heard a lot about you, a lot of good stuff.
You know, the reason I know who you are is because you're on TikTok, as am I, and you just popped up and I was like, who's this bug guy? He's got great bug energy. How did that begin? How did you become a TikToker?
I was sort of dragged kicking and screaming into doing it. I don't know if you know that. We got a new extension director and he said, I want my faculty to make little 2 or 3 minute videos about their area. Mm-hmm. And they came in here and they said, we want you to do one. I said, I don't care nothing about doing that. I like to write. And they said, no, you're going to do one. They just stuck the phone up there and I just talked off the top of my head. They come back about 2 weeks later and said,
you're a star.
It's gone crazy. And they said, we want you to do a whole string of them. I said, I'm not doing it. And so finally I said, I'll do one a month. Well, now I do 2 a month. I've come to enjoy it. Nobody much has criticized me too badly. I try to just talk off the top of my head. If I try to think about it too much, it messes it up.
My social media manager, she just wants you to know that you mean a lot to her. She is from the South, and she sometimes feels like she is assumed to not be smart because she's from the South. And so having somebody with a thick accent, being smart in front of people makes her feel good.
Well, I'm glad for that. I do talk slow, but it doesn't mean my brain works slow.
No, I don't even think you do talk slow. I think you talk at exactly the right speed. And also, she wants to know if being from the South has maybe made you a better science communicator because you're around people who have different perspectives on science.
I don't know if it made me that way, but I certainly am aware of that. Whatever audience I'm speaking to, I try to get down on their level. Mm-hmm. And in a big scientific conference, if you do that too much, they think you're an idiot. But I don't care. To me, it's what they take away from the talk. Do they remember any of this?
Yeah.
And so I really try to engage the audience, look them in the eye, figure out what level they're on, and meet them there. That's what I try to do. I don't know that I've had to do that. I guess it just came second nature. My dad was a college instructor. They weren't professors at a community college. And he was crazy with all kind of antics and stuff, and I think I got that from him.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, when I do it, I am always trying to imagine, an audience that knows less than me. But it's very hard to know where people are at, and I think that we all end up picking our lane, not really knowing that we're doing it. So I want to talk to you about bugs. I've been thinking a lot about bugs because I knew I was going to be talking to you. And I think that we don't think about them enough, but I'm very glad that there are people out there thinking about them a lot. I feel like you got obsessed at some point. Am I making this up?
Now, first of all, let me say this.
Okay.
There's so many bugs that no one person can know them all. A herpetologist could know all the herps in the whole world. An ornithologist could possibly know all the birds in the whole world, but there's no person that can know all the bugs in the whole world. Oh, and I do use that word bug loosely.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to call or text and say that it applies only to the Hemiptera. Well, I know that. But I just call them all bugs. But there's no one person that can know them all. So what you do is you specialize. There's insect taxonomists, insect physiologists, insect ecologists. There's forest entomologists. There's crop entomologists. I'm a medical entomologist. So the problem is people assume that I know all the bugs, and I don't. Somebody can bring me a bug. They can drive 100 miles, come in here and hand me a bug and say, what is that? If it's not of medical importance, I just say, looks like a bug to me. And they get all mad and stuff. So that's important to know that. Now, to answer your question, I just always loved biology. I loved science. I loved the outdoors. I loved snakes. I loved birds when I was in high school and community college. But I didn't know which one to specialize in. So as often happens, when I went to college, big college, and took entomology. I was just majoring in biology education, but when I took entomology, the professor was a bug fiend. He was just crazy about bugs. He thought, slept, drank, ate bugs. I mean, I'm telling you, this guy was infectious. He's still around. Name was Paul Legault. I loved him. He was kind to me and my wife. He took us into his home. And so I was just smitten. I was hooked. I said, this is what I want to be as an entomologist. That was for my bachelor's and master's. Then when I got to the PhD, I applied for some PhD programs around the country, and there was a guy at Mississippi State University. You know, Mississippi State and an Ole Miss are rivals. But anyway, I got a call from Mississippi State. There was a professor there who said, I've got some research money to do studies on ticks and spotted fever. So I said, oh, cool, that sounds neat, the medical aspects of bugs. So that's why I went in that direction. But being an entomologist was all due to Dr. Paul Legault at the University of Mississippi.
This thing where we get obsessed, I love it so much. Did you find that there was always like another thing under the next bug, under the next leaf? There was always something to find?
Yeah, I mean, you realize real quick, even with a PhD, you realize when you graduate with a PhD that you don't know everything. You realize really what you don't know. You say, oh my God, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
When you find out more, you realize you don't know more. But to be obsessed, some of the obsession was on me, but some of it was just the sheer fact of being under the pressure to learn all that stuff, like the insect taxonomy. That's a class. Well, you have to learn like 200-300 families of insects. So you just have to obsess to survive. And like one night, my wife woke up and I was digging in a potted plant in the house, digging in it. And she said, what are you doing? I said, there's a pentastomid in here somewhere. Well, I guess I was asleep. I don't know. And so stuff like that happened a lot. It was so much pressure to learn the bugs. But then again, when I got that PhD, I thought, I never had imposter syndrome. I never had that. I'm too full of myself. But I really realized, man, I don't know anything. I don't know anything. And so to this day, and you're probably aware of this, one of the best books I've ever read is The Virtues of Ignorance. There's a book called The Virtues of Ignorance. And it's about what we don't know. And the point is, in that book, a lot of it's climate-oriented. It's saying we really don't know what we don't know. And that's a really important point. We have to be cautious. We have to be humble. We have to be realistic and not think, well, we know everything about the world and what to do and how to intervene. We don't know anything. We're just scratching the surface.
So you were sort of following a path that was being laid out before you to some extent. You got this infectious teacher who infected you with bug enthusiasm, and then you went off to study insects of medical importance, which of course is a lot of what we're studying. That, you know, you might be looking at crop importance or, impacts on trees or impacts on pollination. But usually we're looking at bugs through the lens of how they affect us.
That's true.
And medical importance, that's kind of the most important thing. A huge number of people who have died because of insects.
That's true.
How are we doing with our understanding of bugs? Because it seems a little bit like it might be getting worse in the U.S. Obviously it got way better when we were able to eradicate malaria from the southern U.S. But now it seems like a lot of tick-borne illnesses, there's like more of it than there's ever been.
That's a good question. I think if you need to broaden that a little bit to infectious diseases.
Okay.
People have died from infectious diseases like crazy.
Yeah.
I found a little cemetery down by Natchez, Mississippi. I was tick collecting in the woods, and I found a little cemetery. It was like a little family cemetery. It was mama and daddy and the children. You could tell by the names and by the dates.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at that, and it was 1830s. And they had 8 children, and only one lived past 18 years old. Now, I'm not saying somebody didn't get killed in an accident or something. That's most likely infectious diseases coming through, yellow fever, or of course it could be flu or something like that. Mm-hmm. So infectious diseases for a while, maybe in the 60s or early 70s, 1970s, people began to think, well, we've got that licked. We've got them beat down. It's not a problem. But that's not true. Microorganisms seem to be winning the war. If you ask me, they're becoming resistant to the drugs that are used to treat them and resistant to the pesticides we use to kill the bugs. So anyway, yes, it does seem like in many ways these infectious diseases transmitted by bugs or arthropods, I know ticks aren't bugs, does seem to be getting worse. Part of the problem with that is some of it is increased reporting, increased recognition. That's part of it, no question. But part of it is, for example, there are more ticks probably, and somebody will probably question that, but there's probably more ticks in the United States today than there were in the 1930s. And it's because the deer population has come back. My grandfather would say in the 1930s, they would go hunting, rabbit hunting, and they would say, we saw a deer track. Well, duh, today you have to drive around with your foot on the brake because they're jumping out in front of you. There's so many of them. And so the tick relationship, ticks and mammals, and of course birds too, but ticks and mammals, it's like an increasing spiral. The more deer, the more ticks, the more, there's more things for them to get on and feed on. And so in my mind, if you look at the data, it does seem like the deer populations are going straight up.
Yeah.
And that leads to more ticks, especially ticks that feed on deer. And so now we've got more and more of these tick-borne diseases. Another thing that contributes to that, Hank, is people moving out into the countryside. Everybody wants 2 or 3 acres out in the suburbs somewhere. Well, then they have all this fancy little rock works and, fancy bushes and stuff. And so you're just making a harborage for these little white-footed mice and things that the ticks feed on. And then, of course, somebody might get Lyme disease or whatever from that.
And ticks have kind of a weird, like a longer life cycle. Like mosquitoes are
pretty short, yeah.
Live fast, die young.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. But ticks have like a 2-year life cycle, most of them.
Oh, wow, yeah. And so when a food source for ticks increases, it might be a long time before the ticks fully respond to that increase.
Yeah, that's true. And, it's very complicated. And like you said earlier, we don't understand a lot in nature. Like, there's been some studies that have shown that Lyme disease cases in the northeastern United States are related to the tree mass, the acorns falling. When you have a big acorn crop, there's more of these little mice, and then that ultimately leads to more of the ticks feeding on mice, and then ultimately more Lyme disease.
So we've created great habitat for mice.
That's true.
And then a number of things has increased the population of deer, which I assume in the 1830s, the main...
1930s is when that happened.
Oh, in the 1930s.
I think there were a good many deer in the 1830s, but in the early part of the 20th century, that's when deer populations crashed, and it was probably from unregulated hunting.
Gotcha.
I think, and I'm not an expert on this, but I think states began to establish game wardens and stuff in the 1930s. So protecting deer, protecting ducks, protecting animals, then their populations started going up.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Can I ask you my hot question?
Sure.
If you could kill all the deer ticks, would you?
Oh, that's a good question, Hank. I got to tell you a little story about this.
Okay.
A student of mine, I'm not going to call any names of the companies, but a student of mine was asked to interview in a big tech company, huge tech company in this world. And she was a parasitologist, and she was asked to interview about a job.
Mm-hmm.
So she found out from her interview that they were actually exploring getting rid of certain species, like maybe the Aedes aegypti mosquito and maybe the deer tick, and maybe ways to eliminate them from the earth. She didn't get the job, but that's where she sort of found out that's some ideas they have they want to do. And so she asked me about that. What would you think about eliminating a certain species from the earth? And I said, I wouldn't do it. As much as the diseases they cause happen, I don't know that I would do that. To me, that's playing God. It goes back to that we don't know what we don't know. And at least with a lot of arthropods, they're important in the food chain, the web of life, in ways we don't know. Well, one that we do know, mosquito larvae, fish eat mosquito larvae like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to be careful about that. And Hank, I think it's like Jenga, the game Jenga. I'm not endorsing Jenga, but it's like Jenga. You can knock out a few.
Let the record show.
Let the record
Dr. Jerome
show.
Goddard does not support Jenga.
Let the record show Mississippi State University does not endorse Jenga. I'm just saying. It's like Jenga. If you knock out a species or two or three, maybe that's fine, but at some point, the thing collapses. And that's what scares me. We don't know what we don't know.
Right. Yeah, we don't know what we don't know for sure. Are there then things that we can do that could control, if not the ticks, or we could control the ticks to some extent, and then also on top of that, control the disease?
Yeah, there's some non-chemical ways to control ticks, like vegetation management and stuff like that. Burning. I know that's controversial in a lot of people's eyes, but control burns actually help with tick population. You can't just burn once and have tick control for 10 years. That doesn't work. But carefully done every year or so, burning really reduces tick numbers.
Oh, for sure.
And then, of course, pesticides. A lot of people anti-pesticide, but I think pesticides are public health tools. I do. You can use them. I mean, don't be just going crazy, but sure, there's a place for chemical control of ticks. And then personal protection. You've got all these things, environmental management or vegetation management, burning, and then personal protection. All of those together can reduce the risk of tick-borne disease.
I read about a thing where they're taking these little white-footed mice and they are vaccinating them against the thing that causes Lyme.
Yeah.
And then they're releasing them out and they're like, okay, now the ticks won't get the disease from biting the mice. Like the mice won't be a vector anymore.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with that, but that's being done with a lot of different things. Like in Texas, they're throwing out this bait that has a vaccine for rabies and stuff like that. So yeah, there's ways to do that where you're vaccinating passively, I guess, vaccinating the animals against those agents, and then thus reduces the ability to have this disease transmission. And sometimes that's a tick control thing, like in the northeastern United States, a lot of times people will put out these little boxes. You can buy these little boxes where a mouse goes through there, and there's some cotton in there that has pesticide on it, and then maybe there's some feed or bait. And so it rubs a pesticide on their fur, and it kills the ticks on them. There's a thing called four-posters. I don't endorse the use of four-posters. There's a thing called four-posters where the deer feed, they stick their head in there and these paint rollers, and they're eating this feed, and the paint rollers have pesticide on them, and it rubs it off on their head, and it kills the ticks. The thing to me, this is just me, that I've thought about is how do you control the dose? Because there's going to be some deer that are more dominant, and they're going to get all the food and get all the dose. So anyway, there's a lot of things to consider with that.
It's so, as you say, all these things are dependent on each other. You wouldn't necessarily think that if we stopped unregulated hunting of deer that we would get a spike in Lyme disease 30, 40 years later.
That's right.
We solve a problem and we get a new problem. We have to figure out what to do with that one.
And there's probably new or undescribed tick diseases. I remember when Lyme disease was described.
Oh, interesting.
I knew Willie Bergdorfer very well. and he discovered the agent of Lyme disease. They named it after him, Borrelia burgdorferi, as far as the agent.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those are two different things, the disease and the
agent. Yeah, the disease is the disease, a condition in a person.
Sure.
See, I say it all the time, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't say ticks transmit Lyme disease. Ticks don't transmit the disease. The disease is the human condition, the disease state. They transmit the agent. I do it all the time. People just roll their eyes.
Well, this is like you get COVID-19 from SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah, that's it.
The example that we're all aware of now. But what is the agent? What is it? Is it a virus? It's a bacteria. It's a bacteria.
Lyme disease is a bacteria. And the good thing about bacteria is you can treat them with antibiotics. See, that's a good thing. The problem is things like powassan or heartland, some of those, tick-borne encephalitis, those things are viruses. And there are some antivirals, but to my knowledge, they aren't very effective against tick-borne diseases.
Why are ticks so good at spreading diseases, Dr.
I think it's because they feed on blood for such a long time.
Oh, so not just a little bit.
There's stages, the larval stage, the nymphal stage, the adult stage. That doesn't mean they're a worm. It's just the baby stage is called a larva.
Yeah.
And then the middle stage, nymphal ticks, and then the adults. Each one of those has to have a blood meal to turn into the next stage. And, of course, the female, when she's done with the blood meal, she falls off, lays eggs, starts to cycle over again. So here's this thing that attaches to animals out there in the woods, sucks up blood for days, 2, 3, 4 days. If it's a little baby tick, maybe a week or 10 days as an adult. There's more opportunities to suck in a disease agent that's going on in that animal.
And also they have to, in the course of their life, they're having several blood meals.
That's true.
And so they have the chance to move it from a mouse to a deer or from a deer to a human.
And this varies by the different bug cycle and disease cycle, but it can be, the germ could be in their midgut, the germ could be in their salivary glands. So it's different ways. If it's in the midgut, when they feed, they sort of spit. All blood-feeding insects, when they feed, they spit. And they're trying to, mediate that immune response. So they spit. And so if it's in their midgut, it could be regurgitated. If it's in the salivary glands, it can go in with the saliva.
Yeah. So the saliva is a big part of it and is also like a very important part of how the tick is able to do its...
That's exactly right, without being scratched off. Saliva has anesthetic in it, and it also has some things that reduce that inflammation so that you don't know it's feeding. Now, I know I do. I itch, and I'll usually scratch it. But some of these bugs, especially like kissing bugs and stuff, some of them have developed or evolved to the point where they can bite you and you don't even know it. You can't even feel it. That saliva totally anesthetizes it.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
I've heard that tick spit is like one of the most biologically complex things.
It's full of all kind of chemicals and stuff. They've studied that. I think it's called the xylome.
Whoa.
It's the xylome, like the proteome is your proteins.
Yeah.
Well, the xylome's what's in the saliva. People study that stuff. It's crazy. And another thing that's the opposite of that is not all diseases are transmitted by the front end. Some are transmitted by the back end. While they're feeding, they poop.
And then it gets in my blood?
Well, when they're feeding, it poops.
Yeah.
And then you might scratch it or rub it, and you rubbing that agent into the hole.
God, man, I'd just prefer if evolution would just take a break one day, You don't have to invent a whole new disease transmission route that involves me first getting stabbed and injected with some of the most complicated
chemicals on the earth,
an entire xylome of molecules, and then got to get pooped on?
Sure. What works is what gets selected, Hank.
What works is what gets selected. This is what we find. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we're like, this doesn't make sense. And then it's like, well, it has to. At a certain level, it has to. Because if it's not working, it wouldn't be being selected for.
There would be no success and the animal would die out.
Well, I don't love all of this. Gotta be honest. I live in Montana, where we got a slightly different set of tick-borne diseases, but we got them. Mm-hmm. And then there's this new thing that is really wild. Now people are getting meat allergies from ticks.
Yeah, alpha-gal syndrome, yeah.
Is this caused by a bacteria or a virus, or is it?
No, it's caused by a chemical. It's actually a sugar. It's a carbohydrate called alpha-galactoshubidoo. It's about that long. I just call it alpha-gal. That's what most people do, but it's a carbohydrate. And what it is, it's in all mammals except primates. And so what happens is, it's really a lot about this still not known, but the current thinking is what happens is when a tick feeds on you, after it's maybe fed on a deer or something, it has it. One idea is that the tick has some pieces and parts of that blood meal, the alpha-gal's in it, and then it spits it into you when it's feeding, and you become sensitive. If you have allergies or propensity for allergies, you can become allergic to alpha-gal. Then when you eat a steak, which is in the steak, then you have the anaphylactic shock a few hours later. But I think more recently the idea is the tick, for some reason, produces alpha-gal on its own. In its saliva, it produces alpha-galactose, shoo-ba-doo. And I don't really even know what would be the purpose of that or why or how that would benefit the tick. But anyway, it's recently recognized. I bet it's only been recognized about 15 years.
Yeah, and it seems to be growing. I mean, it's so like the alpha-gal is part of the xylem, and we don't know what all those molecules are doing.
No,
because it's been been selected for very intricately over a long period of time.
That's right, and nobody knows for sure if the tick is getting that alpha-gal from a mammal it fed on, or if it's producing it itself. A lot is not known about it. I think there's a cofactor in that. There's a reason why it's from a tick bite. I think the tick saliva has a cofactor that activates this alpha-gal or something. There's something else going on there.
Well, we are still at the beginning of understanding allergies, which is crazy, but the immune system is so complicated. But it turns out that if you're exposed to a protein through your digestive system, that's a completely different thing to your immune system than being exposed to it
through the blood.
On injection.
Yeah, very complicated.
Which has a lot of impacts on making it so that kids don't develop allergies as much.
That's right.
One of the things with egg allergies is if you get exposed to eggs via like skin contact before you're exposed to them through eating is often how babies develop egg allergies. So they're like, feed your babies eggs early.
It's real complicated. You know, one time I was getting a flu shot, and they always ask, are you allergic to anything? I wait till they get halfway done, and I say, sometimes I wheeze after eating eggs. They almost faint. They'll just go, oh my gosh. I do it on purpose.
That's great. That's
Why
nice.
not?
Then you have a special card that you whip out and says, you've been punked by a college professor and entomologist.
By a bug man.
Do you think that there's something it's like to be a bug?
You asking me what do I think it's like to be a bug?
No, I'm asking if you think there is something it's like to be a bug.
Ask that again. Ask me that again before I go off on it.
Okay, do you think that there is something that it's like to be a bug? In the way that there is something that it's like to be us? Or like, presumably there's something that it's like to be a dog, but do you think there's something that it's like to be a bug?
I don't know. I think there's certain traits and behaviors are common to all living creatures, certainly. Mm-hmm. And bugs have that as well. You know, reaction to stimuli and stuff like that, reproducing and all that. But other than that, I don't know what you're asking me.
I mean, the simplest experience that a thing can have is like pain.
Yeah.
Like, do you think I have to worry about killing a spider? Maybe is what I'm asking.
That's a good question. I think they do have nerves that tell them something's unpleasant or not good and they avoid it. I do think they have that. I don't know if they feel pain in the same way we do because their brain is so small. It really just have a little nerve cord in them, and there's a place where it's a little bit bigger, you know, like a ganglion, and that's their brain. People have argued about this. Somebody reported one time that honeybees dream. Well, how would you know that? How in the world does anybody know that? I don't know that. So I personally don't mind killing a spider. I don't mind killing a spider, but I can see how people do that. Somebody told me, I don't know if it's true, somebody told me that they read that Billy Graham wouldn't even kill a spider. So I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
I'll put one outside knowing full well that it's not going to survive out there. But is there a bug that you'd be for a little while just to see?
I'd rather stay a human, Hank.
For a little while, though. Yeah, I guarantee you can come back.
If I could guarantee to come back, I think I might be something like a dragonfly because they got such good eyes and they catch and eat stuff.
Yeah.
They're brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
They can catch mosquitoes and eat them. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun, or maybe a monarch butterfly.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm like, yeah, I want to be a dragonfly.
Because they got those big eyes.
They look like they're having a good time, and they're like some of the most effective hunters on Earth.
Yeah,
they have
they
like a
are.
98% success rate when hunting.
And I don't know if anything eats them. Maybe they do, but I don't know of it. I guess cars hit them.
What's up with the cars? I have seen this where it's like, remember back in the 80s when our cars were covered in bugs and now we drive through the countryside and there's no bugs? Is that because there's less bugs?
I don't know the answer to that, but I've heard a lot of people say that. I've heard a lot of people say that there's less butterflies in the grill of the car. Now, I don't know if anybody's quantitated that. Maybe they have. I do think there are less butterflies than there were 100 years ago or two. I do. Or any bugs, really, probably, except the big pest bugs. That's primarily from loss of habitat.
Yeah.
We're just building uncontrolled out into the woods, developing places we shouldn't. We should be more wise about that, about where we develop stuff. But I do think it's loss of habitat.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like a cornfield is a very different habitat for a bug than whatever was there before the cornfield was there.
Well, a monoculture, and I'm not anti-farming. I can't be anti-farming and be from Mississippi. I'm not anti-farming, but really,
for sure,
monoculture of anything, Hank, trees like pine trees or corn or anything, in a way that's not good.
Yeah.
It's not the natural way. I don't know, though, if we could sustain the human population if we didn't. I'm not saying.
For sure, we need the food. There's ways to do it more efficiently,
Yeah.
but then we have to eat less meat, which is hard.
Yeah.
Is there a way for us to get more wise about this, do you think? Like, I feel like part of it is just paying attention, and in a way that, like, you so clearly do, digging around in the potted plants in your house.
I do think all of us, I don't care, conservative, liberal, or whatever, all of us need to be better stewards of the earth and pay more attention to these things. Like I said, I'm very pro-pesticide, at least for disease management and for crops and stuff. But we need to be wise about that. We need, at least with pesticides, use integrated pest management and not just depend on pesticides. We need to use some non-chemical ways to control it, and people do. We need to be smart about it and judicious in the way we do that. We need to be smart about land use. I'm not big into the government telling you what you can do with your land, but we need to be wiser about land use.
There's some sense that, there's the government telling you what you can do, and then there's civic responsibility.
That's true, because we all live together. Each person can't do what they want to do.
Yeah.
We got to live together. It's called civilization.
That's right.
But now, this is not medical entomology, but it's just my thoughts.
So back to the medical entomology, you got this first, was it a postdoc position or a PhD position?
PhD at Mississippi State in medical entomology.
And then you finish your PhD. And, a lot of times people finish their PhD. It can be a very disruptive moment, because what exactly do we do with this now that we have it?
Yeah, I couldn't find a job. I'll be honest with you. I thought I was hot snot, but I couldn't find a job. If I tried to, let's say, if I tried at a high school to teach biology, they said, no, there's no way, you're overqualified.
I actually need you to explain what hot snot is.
Well, it's just a Southern term.
Is that good or is that bad?
Yeah, I thought I was really good. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I guess that is a little bit of a oxymoron or something. But anyway, so I couldn't find a job. I applied for jobs all around. It was bad. I went a month, I don't know exactly how long, without a paycheck. And I had a wife and a little kid about 2 or 3 years old. And so I thought, what the heck am I going to do? I guess I could go work at a pool table factory or something. But anyway, a man called me from the Air Force, and he said, I understand you're looking for a job. And so I said, yeah, maybe. And he said, we're hiring entomologists. The military hires more medical entomologists than anybody. And he explained it to me, and I said, well, I'm not much of a soldier. I would not do that. I mean, that's just not who I am. I'm not against it, but when you're eating acorns and grass at night, you say, where do I sign up, buddy?
You're turning into a white-footed mouse yourself.
I went into the Air Force. I had a PhD, so they commissioned me as a captain. I didn't know what I was doing.
You got rank.
Yeah, the captain's pretty high rank. They sent us to a officers training school, but it was for medical people. So that's important. My training for being an officer in the Air Force is not the same as a line officer. It's totally different. It's easier. That's just all I got to say. It's easier.
Did you think you were signing up to be a medical entomologist in the military and they were going to put you in boot camp?
I didn't know. And I didn't know, what am I going to do? What if I have to throw a grenade? I might get scared and put it in my pocket. I didn't know. So I went to this training, and it was for medical officers. Well, it's a lot easier. I mean, it was still, you have to do, you run, jump, swim, all that, climb the obstacle course, all that stuff, gas chamber, wear the gas mask, all that stuff. But it wasn't as hard. You have to march. I was the Gomer Pyle of the Air Force. And most people these days don't even know about Gomer Pyle, but I was the Gomer Pyle of the Air Force. I don't know if you know anything about it, Hank, but they line you up to march. The tallest person's on the back, either right or left. I get mixed up. The tallest person's on the back row at the end. Then the column can turn and go. Well, then you're on the front. Well, there's somebody on the other side over there calling the cadence. Huna, huna, ha, ha. Well, here you're marching. And when they say, sounds like they're coughing up a loogie. Does that mean turn right or turn left? You're on the front. And so I turned the wrong way several times. I did it. I didn't know what I was doing.
I like that you mixed into there that you are the tallest man in the Army.
I was the tallest man in my group of the airport. Just my group. I wasn't the tallest man in the whole darn military. And then when I got out of that, then I was more comfortable because they sent me to my work duty station in San Antonio at a school of aerospace medicine, which was like a medical school, and they had a library and all that. Well, they set me down in front of a phone, and they said, this is where you work. And I said, well, what do I do? They said, you just take calls and letters from where our troops are all over the world, and you answer their questions. You look at their bugs. We get mosquitoes from all over the world. You look at them, you identify them. Well, I said, I ain't never really learned much about mosquitoes from Guam or Philippines. Well, they said, just do it. We didn't have the internet. They had computers, some people did, but we didn't have computers at first. So it was really a steep learning curve, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was the very best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to learn medically important bugs worldwide.
Wow, yeah. And is that information still in your head somewhere, or is it mostly in your textbook that you wrote?
Mostly in my textbooks. If you don't use it, you lose it. But it was really good for me. There was stuff like this. One time somebody called and they said, I think from Southeast Asia, a doctor or something, said, we've got an Air Force person that was doing some kind of exercise in New Guinea and that we found a maggot in his eye. What is it? Well, I said, I ain't never really learned much about maggots in the eye. I said, but you send it on, I'll do my best. And so you do that for 2 or 3 years, you get pretty good at it.
So they're sending you bugs and you're trying to figure out what they are?
Yeah. Or asking about stuff. They might ask, we've got an outbreak of this such and such a disease by mosquitoes. What do we do? And so you have to know the pesticides and the different practices to prevent or manage those things.
Wow. That's intense.
Yeah. I got out. I could have stayed in longer. I had indefinite reserve status, but a job came open in Mississippi at the health department, and I wanted to go home.
And then you get to, pretty quickly, I feel like, you're kind of a big shot in Mississippi bugs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe it's because there was nobody else doing it. Maybe it's just because of the pool of applicants. But in Mississippi, I wasn't the only medical entomologist, but I was one of probably 3.
Yeah.
And so there at the health department, when I started there, somebody had been part-time medical entomology for a few years, just part-time, just covering that, because we had an encephalitis outbreak in the 70s where a lot of people died. So I was the first full-time medical entomologist. One of the bosses said, almost immediately said, we don't know what you're supposed to do. I said, don't you worry. I said, I know exactly what I'm doing. Well, that wasn't true. I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue what to do.
I mean...
But after about 20 years, I knew what I was doing.
This confidence is remarkable. You were saying you don't do imposter syndrome. What do you think that's about?
I don't know, but I'm just being honest. I didn't know. I mean, this is the thing I didn't know. I knew bugs. I went to school a long time. I knew bugs. I knew health a little bit. I mean, people die. There's a health department that try to help the health.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't really know is regulatory. A health department has clinics and has all kind of educational stuff, but they have a regulatory function where they make people do stuff. And that's what I didn't understand. And I also didn't understand the politics of state government. That's very complicated.
Yeah, I bet. Did you step in it?
A few times I learned to avoid that as best I could. I just learned from watching others get destroyed. See, what happens is, and this is true in any state, Hank, any state, if somebody's not happy with a regulatory action from the government, the state government, they will call their state representative or their state senator or their United States representative or senator. Then they call the health department and they chew you out and say, fix this. And I think that's true and always has been true.
Oh, for sure. That's not just a government thing either. That's
it's in corporate world too. And you just got to learn how to thread that needle. I don't really know other than just say you learn. Every decision you make has political consequences.
Do you feel like every decision you make has political consequences means that we maybe aren't as effective as we could be?
I think that's true. I think it does limit effectiveness. I do. And I'm not giving any specific examples.
Sure.
But I do think it limits effectiveness, yes. And so the regulatory part of it and political part of it was one of the most difficult things at the health department. But I loved the health department. I loved the people there. I loved the mission. I enjoyed it so much. Like if there was a disease outbreak, some kid died of mosquito disease, they would send nurses and they would send me with them to do the bug part. What was the mosquitoes? Can we stop it from spreading? And I really enjoyed that a lot. But back to that regulatory, I'll give you an example of that, not giving any identifiers. But one time there was this man in Mississippi who he had some land and he had a big gully, huge gully. And he put the word out, you can bring your old tires and throw them in my gully. Used tires. So
was he charging for this?
I don't think he charged. He wanted to fill up the gully.
Oh,
and I think he thought he'd just put dirt over it after a while. Oh, did you know you can't bury tires, old tires? They come back up.
What?
I don't know if you're out there in the yard and boom. I don't know how it works, but they come back up because they got air in them. They got air in them and they come back to the surface. I don't know how it works. Like I said, I've never seen them pop up, but it works.
I could wager a guess, which is that they trap air.
Yes.
And then when the soil gets waterlogged, they're just floating in the water and they become less dense.
You the science guy.
But the moment where you said, did you know that tires come up? You can't bury tires. They come. I mean, that was like a top 10 moment of my month.
I'm just telling you. But I'm back to the story. Okay,
back to the story.
All right, so this man did this. Well, you can't do that. Tires breed mosquitoes by the billions.
Yeah.
So the inspector of that area called me because I'm the subject matter expert at the big house. I'm at the Tower of Power. So they called me to come down there and look at it. And I'm supposed to just say, there's certain mosquito breeds in there. Yes, you need to do something. That's all I'm supposed to do. So I go there. I'm there with the inspector. Here comes the man that owns the hole in the ground. And the inspector said to the man, this is Dr. Goddard. He's here to talk to you about your tire pile. See, it made me the bad guy. And he's the one with the regulatory power that can take him to court, not me. And I was just floored. He brought me here to fuss at them because he wouldn't fuss at them because he lives in that town.
Yeah.
That's just one example, and I don't fault him for it. I mean, I faulted him at the time, but I should have just said, I don't have any regulatory responsibility. If you have any mosquito questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, I'm...
Yeah. Here's what I'll tell you. This is not a good idea. That's all.
That's all I can say. They breed mosquitoes. They pop up out of the ground like a bomb later. That's all I know.
You can't bury tires.
Can't bury tires. You're supposed to shred them.
Yeah, you can maybe fill them with concrete and get them to sink.
I guess you could, but that'd cost a fortune.
Yeah. So in the 90s, you also, I think, wrote a book, like a textbook type book. Why did you feel like you needed to do that?
It's a great question. In the Air Force, I realized that a lot of physicians didn't have any entomological training. And then when I got at the health department, I realized that they did not have any entomological training, almost zero. So I thought, well, you know what? It'd be a great idea if I could write a book for doctors about bugs of medical importance and make it easy to understand. So what I did is I put the bugs in alphabetical order: ants, bees, beetles, and I wrote that thing, and it was very pivotal. One of the most important things I've done in my career. 2 or 3 times it won awards from the British Medical Association. But yet it's so funny. Some people have complained and murmured in the reviews and said, there seems to be no rhyme or reason how he lists the bug. Well, duh. It's in the preface that they're alphabetical.
Why wouldn't he do it through complicated taxonomy that nobody outside of entomology would know?
That's right. You're supposed to put them by their taxonomic grouping.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. It just feels like you are pretty good at seeing problems and being like, I could probably solve that. Even if I don't know exactly how I would solve it right now, I got to start and I'll figure out how to solve it on the way.
Some of that comes from my wife. I have to give her credit for it, Hank. She's the voice in my head. For example, one time there was a school nurse called me and said there's some school kids in one family and their house is totally and completely covered in bed bugs. The kids come to school with bed bugs in their backpacks, on their clothing, etc. We've finally got to the point where the family doesn't have any money. We've got to the point where we make them take off their clothes and put on another set of clothes at school, but said the other school children have found out about it and they make fun of them. And she said, what can we do about it? And I said, I don't know of anything. University can't fix that. I can give you advice, but we can't fix that. I made the mistake of going home that night and telling my wife. And she said, no, you're going to fix that. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you're going to fix that tomorrow. You are going to fix that. Do you hear me? I said, no. She said, you are going to fix this. So the next day I just started making calls, and I finally ended up calling a pesticide distributor company that gives or sells pesticides to pest control companies for the whole region, a man named Tommy Reeves. He wouldn't mind me saying his name. I told him about it. He said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And he somehow got in touch with a local pest controller and paid for it to be done. So anyway, so my wife sometimes is that voice that says, you're going to do this. It's been for my betterment.
When did you start writing novels?
I started writing novels about 91. The first 1 or 2 I wrote, I had no idea what I was doing. Again, here we go.
Of course.
I had no idea what I was doing, except that Mississippians write books, We do it. Eudora Welty, John Grisham. You just write about it. Hey, if you stop at a little old Stop and Rob store in Mississippi, a little Stop and Go, Stop and Rob. Heck, if you stop at a Stop and Go or Stop and Rob, I'm not trying to endorse any particular brand, and the attendant, the cashier, says, I've been writing me one of them there novels, you better get his autograph.
He's going to be big.
He's going to be in the New York Times. But anyway, back to the writing. At first I got rejected. I've got a folder of rejection letters. I could wallpaper a wall with rejection letters.
Beautiful.
And then finally, a man at the University of West Alabama, Livingston Press, he sent me a letter back after I submitted one, and he gave me a bunch of comments, and that's the first time anybody had ever done anything other than thanks but no thanks. And I thought maybe I'm getting somewhere. Yeah. And so I made his changes, and finally he'd published. That's really, I published in a little regional press before that out west, and that was successful, but this was the biggest one I ever published with. So I'm not that great. I'm not a Greg Iles or anything like that.
You say you did it just because that's what Mississippi people do, but I'm not going to accept that answer.
Okay.
I remember wanting to have written a book. That's like the thing. What I really want is to walk into a bookstore and see my book there or have somebody say, I read your book and I liked it. That was not enough to write a book.
Yeah.
What got me to write a book was feeling like I had something that I needed to say that I couldn't say any other way.
Yeah. I think you're the right way to do it. I think I was the opposite, where I wanted to write a book and didn't have anything to say, but still did it anyway. In that writing world, I just have such a self-discipline. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go from here to there. I don't care if it's crap. I'm going to do it. And that's how many of my scientific papers have been. My professor at Mississippi State University years ago said Goddard has a knack for getting marginal data published. That's what he said.
Oh, no.
That's what he said.
I mean, that's a problem in academia generally right now.
So I think that's carried over into my fiction writing. I'm not saying it's no good. I'm just saying I'm not a Eudora Welty or
Same.
Faulkner or somebody like that. I'm just not that good. I enjoy telling stories. You can tell I'm a storyteller. I enjoy that. And I do try to tell stories in my fiction novel.
Do you feel like your work in entomology infects your fiction?
Oh, yeah, definitely. One of the fiction books I wrote is called The Well of Destiny. Not the whale, the well. The Well of Destiny. And it's about a mosquito-borne disease outbreak. The main character grew up in Mississippi, went to medical school, but he didn't fit Mississippi, the social norms, the prim and proper, all that. And he felt out of place. So he left Mississippi, vowed to never come back. And so he became an infectious disease specialist in mosquito-borne diseases at the CDC. Well, lo and behold, there's a big outbreak happens in Mississippi, which I can write all that because I know all that. And he was forced to come back home. And Hank, if nobody gets anything from this podcast today, this is my little thing I want to say. Life is about going home. Physically, emotionally, whatever, it's about going home. And that's the story there. He went back home. He had to face those things from the past. He had to face those people, and he did. Life's about going home.
That makes me think that you mean something more than, because, in some ways I can't go home, I can't go back to the Orlando of my youth. What do you mean by home there?
I guess it's a metaphor. It's a place of security, a place of calm. It can be a mental state. You can be at home in the jungle or in a disaster or whatever you could be. But it is sometimes physical, going back to where your roots are, where your family or connections are. When I was in the Air Force and I heard about the job in Mississippi, I had indefinite reserve status, which meant I was supposed to stay in longer than I was. So I had to ask permission to get out. I was from Mississippi and I wanted to go home. And so I carried my papers to the squadron commander. And I said, I love this job. I love he said, cut the crap, Goddard. He said, you can BS your friends. I'll BS my friends, but we're not going to BS one another. I said, okay. I said, I'm from Mississippi. There's a job there and I want to go home. He said, sounds good to me. Signed it. But it's a place in your heart or a place in your mind where you feel ensconced. I don't even know if I can say that word, or calm and at ease. And I have learned that life is really about going home.
Wow. I don't know. I feel like I might still be running away sometimes.
Well, now, I'm not no psychiatrist. I'm not a counselor. I didn't mean to touch any nerves.
You just told me that life is about going home, and I'm thinking about that.
Life is about going home. Let me tell you a little story that happened to me when I was in this writing like a fiend this night and day. Well, one time I was with the state health officer. Well, she was the epidemiologist at the time at Mississippi Department of Health. We were going somewhere on a trip, and I was philosophizing about the dinosaurs or the age of the earth. I don't know what it was. Just going on and on and on. And she said, what's driving you to do? Why are you doing this? Why are you spend so much time writing and talking and obsessing about it? I said, because when the final bell goes off, I want to have done all I could do, written all I could publish, She said, I think when the final bell goes off, I just want to have raised 2 children that are kind and great citizens and productive. And I just felt about that doll. It showed up the flaws in me that it was all about me.
Yeah. I mean, there's something else that I'm taking away from this conversation already, which is just not letting something stand in your way a little bit. It just seems like, you're just kind of taking it on. You're just kind of going.
Yeah. There's so many people that won't attempt something because they don't think they could do it right.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm just the opposite. That never enters my mind that I can't do it. I got a paper about cardiology in a medical journal. Well, I don't know nothing about cardiology. And
Oh my God, I saw one of your papers and I was like, what is he, right?
well, I've written on I wrote about ADHD. What the heck do I know about ADHD? I wrote a paper about memories. Traumatic memories can act like viruses, infecting people.
I think that was the plot of one of your books too, wasn't it?
Living memories. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because this was a thing in my book where everybody, like, there was an infectious dream.
Yeah.
That went from person to person. So we're finding similar things
This
here.
is a really deep and sort of philosophical thing. Certain traumatic memories, certain ones, makes the person want to do that to somebody else. Now, if you have a traumatic memory from a tornado, you can't make a tornado. You can't, but some memories make you have an urge to do it and repeat it. Well, if you think about it, that's the memory trying to spread itself. It's infectious. It's infectious. And so that's where all that came from, Living Memories and Soul Traveler. Those books came from that idea that traumatic memories can move from one person to another.
You also did, I think, was this your thesis where you studied people's reactions to bed bugs?
No, that wasn't my thesis, but I've done some papers on that. And the good thing about that was you have to be real careful when you experiment with people.
Sure.
You have to have permission. You can't just say, come here, come here.
I'm going to put you in a bed with bed bugs.
You can't do that. But there was a woman here who was a colleague. She was a postdoc, and she was at my level. So, I mean, it's not like a subordinate. And she reacts every time. If she gets bit by a bed bug, it makes a red, itchy bump. So then we had us a guinea pig, and we got permission from the IRB, the Institutional Review Board, and we did some experiments on her, several of them, and she agreed. And we would test that, whether or not the saliva is causing it and this, that, and the other. And that was a lot of fun. I've also done work with where we put baby ticks on people and had permission to do that. And, of course, if you work with animals, I know people are against animal research. You have to have permission. There's veterinarians watch over it. And I've never worked on animals bigger than a mouse.
But you got to have veterinarian looking over you if you're working on baby ticks?
No, that's humans because we put them on people.
Well, I mean, the tick is an animal.
Well, now that's a good question. That's a good question. Mr. Green, that's a good question.
Don't bring it up with the IRB. They don't need to know.
Did you know in the animal world, the Cook rules for researching animals, it stops at mouse.
Oh.
It doesn't go lower. So right now, there's no restrictions on working on a bug.
Sure.
I can do all the experiments I want to on a bug and then throw them in the garbage.
Oh, man. But am I making up the fact that you did research on people's, was it social media posts?
Oh, yeah, that's psychological effects from bed bugs.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really high-powered research. We just, we accessed some online places where people would post about their experiences, and we analyzed them. Yeah.
And it seems like that in some way, like our relationship with bugs, obviously, like it can be very dangerous physically, but in some ways it's also very just emotionally disturbing.
Very much so, especially parasitic insects or arthropods like a tick that attaches to you, or bed bugs that are in your bed. That's supposedly your safe place, and they're in there with you. It affects people after they've had these infestations. Not everybody, but some people are truly suffering from some sort of post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah. How are the bugs doing?
How are the bugs doing?
Yeah.
Well, they seem to be doing just fine, except for maybe the butterflies and stuff. I'm sorry for the monarchs and all that. But my bugs, the ones that cause disease, we don't want them to do better.
And they're doing fine?
They seem to be doing fine.
Despite our best efforts, do we need better efforts?
To help them be fine?
No!
To help them be better?
No, to help us be fine.
To help them cooperate and learn to be kind?
Yeah, that we need civic responsibility in the bug kingdom.
They just do what they do because it works. We've talked about that before.
Should we be doing more? Do we not have our act together? Or is this just a really hard problem?
Well, just for example, bed bugs, we don't have our act together. That's a very good point. It is turned into, this is not the right word, but it's turned into like a social justice issue. People that get bed bugs in their house that have money can get rid of them. People that are poor that get bed bugs in their house, they can't get rid of them. it costs like $1,000 to get rid of bed bugs. So they'll go to the home and garden store and they'll buy a can of pesticide that says kills bed bugs. That won't work. It will not work. Do it yourself for bed bugs will not work. So we could do a better job with that right there for sure.
If Jerome Goddard was in charge of the world, there'd be some kind of subsidy for that.
I think there needs to be some sort of subsidy or money to be used for pest control, like bed bugs and cockroaches, like in public housing especially. A lot of asthma in children is from cockroaches. It's cockroach allergy. It's a thing. And they've shown this in studies. And so I think there should be some federal money. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That people could tap into for control of those pests for the children's sake.
Yeah. That's excellent insight and not insight I would have had. It seems solvable and also like, a little un-American that we would not have solved this problem yet.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things we can solve, like this screwworm thing that's trying to come back. There's a thing called the screwworm fly. It's a blowfly. Blowflies are those green or blue shiny flies that lay eggs on dead things. The maggots eat the dead thing. It's part of nature. There's nothing wrong with it. And occasionally those flies, that family, Calliphoridae of flies, blowflies, will lay eggs on a real festering, malodorous wound. Veterinarians see this. Sometimes it happens with people. But the maggots don't go into the living tissue. They don't take off. The screwworm fly, there's several species of them. There's some New World and Old World screwworm flies in that same family. But those larvae take off into the good tissue. And so they just eating around in your flesh. If they're in your head, they're just eating up in your head. If they're on a cow or deer, it can kill them. It's awful. So that thing used to occur here in the southern United States up to the mid-'60s. And the way they eradicated it was most flies, the female only mates once. And she stores the sperm and then fertilizes the eggs out of that. Well, what you do is you grow a bunch of those screwworm flies in the lab, millions, irradiate them with x-rays and stuff, throw them out in an airplane. They're male, throw out the males. They mate with the females. The female thinks, I'm good, but she's not good. And so it kills them out.
Wow.
And so that worked in the 60s. They eradicated it all the way down to about Panama or somewhere. But in the last year or two or three, they're coming back, and they're within about 70 miles of the U.S. border now in Mexico.
We still, though, drop a bunch of these flies out of planes every year?
Not as many as we should. USDA broke ground recently on a new facility somewhere in Texas, and their goal is to release 300 million sterile male flies a week, and that'll knock them back down.
Could we help out Mexico get over there?
I think there is cooperation between Mexico and the United States on this for sure. Yeah.
How do you think about humans' relationship? Like having spent all this time with bugs, how do you think about our relationship with nature?
This is philosophical. Are we part of nature or are we above it? That's a very critical point in thinking. Am I part of this thing or am I somehow special? And I think it is a little bit dangerous when we think we're special. That's a little bit dangerous. I personally, from some of my religious views, think we are a special creation. However, that can be very dangerous because you mistreat or misuse those resources.
I also think that we are special. I got to it from a different place than you, but I completely agree. If you internalize that, it leads you to places that is, I think, to some extent, not particularly moral, but also to dangerous places in terms of how you set up the world for the future.
Yes. And I think this needs to be taught or discussed. I mean, at least discussed. I've taught a philosophy of science type course, and that's what I tried to get into those students, those graduate students, is you need to think about your worldview. I'm not caring which one you got, but you need to think about how you process information in this world. They say, well, I don't have a worldview. Well, duh. Of course you do. They say, I'm an atheist. Well, it don't matter. You got a worldview. That's it. And so it's important just to know you have a worldview. So anyway, they get all mad at me about that. One of them said, Hank said, look, in a class, said, we know you're religious, so how does that not affect your science? I said, it does. At least I know it does. You see what I'm saying? At least I know it does. At least I can be careful. You see what I'm saying? At least I can be careful. I know better than you that don't know.
Yeah, you're not aware of the way that
You're not even aware of how you're thinking.
Yeah.
Eschatology or whatever it is.
Could be. It's one of the ologies.
It's some ology. Eschatology might be the end of the world.
Could be. I think that one's another one.
Oh, man.
But maybe not. I gotta look it up. It is. You're right. It is the final destiny and soul of the soul and of humankind. Eschatology.
Eschatology.
Well done. Well done. What point did you feel like you were compelled to or had to write a book about the dichotomy between faith and science and how that isn't a real dichotomy?
That book is an interesting book. I'm not saying it's interesting to read. I'm saying it was interesting from my point of view because really nobody likes it. The reason nobody likes it is religious people say it opens the door to doubt. It's too worldly. The non-religious people say it's too religious and opens the door to superstition. So people just have to realize it was just me working through these things myself, and I wrote it down.
Do you feel like people don't like it, or just the people you heard from didn't like it?
Both. I've had people actually comment on it on some of the places it's for sale that actually say stuff. This is religion. I don't want nothing to do with it. But some of it is in my mind. Yeah, some of it is in my mind. But also some of my experience, some of my friends that are very religious, they'd say, man, you opened the door to all kind of doubt and unbelief. Well, I don't care. I'm just telling them what happened to me.
Yeah.
And when it's your turn, you say what happened to you.
Well, this is the thing about science. I mean, the idea is to open yourself to doubt. That's the whole thing.
That's right. Question it. Question things.
And saying like, and maybe I'm wrong. And also, here's my data. You can try and duplicate my results, try and prove me wrong.
If you look at that book, they start out with a pro and con argument of the issue. And what makes people mad, I think, is I never give the answer.
Oh, for sure.
I just say, this is sort of how I think this way. And people get all mad, well, you didn't solve it. Yeah, duh. You can't solve it. There's things in my life, Hank. I have a shelf in my life called the unresolvables. You just put stuff on that shelf.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd just be beating your head on the wall.
Yeah.
You just go crazy. You know who's in the mental institution? The logician. The logician's the one in the mental institution. Good thinkers able to hold two diametrically opposed ideas at the same time in their head.
Yeah.
And I'm not the first person that ever said that. It's some famous quote.
Yeah, I mean, you can't exist in the world if you actually would like to live by hard tenets.
It'll fall apart. It will fall apart, Hank.
It does fall apart very fast.
And you know what?
Yeah.
Even if you're religious, Jewish, whatever, you know what? You put God in a box, he'll kick a wall out. It'll happen. Oh, what I thought was true is not true.
It's just like life.
It's life. It is life.
Our lives, but also, the idea, like the thing, life, like biology. If you try to put it in a box, it'll kick a wall out.
It'll kick a hole in it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize that. I've also come to realize it's sort of an illusion that we can control things. You know what I mean? That you can control your life. That's an illusion.
Yeah.
You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it.
And what you do with it.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
You'd know more about that than I do with, your struggles. But anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, my struggles and my advantages. Yeah. Like the thing about the kind of success that I've had is that it wants you to believe that you did it.
That's right.
And if you believe that you did it, then it means that you deserve it and you don't have to do anything with it.
That's right. And that's not good. You know what? When I was, I'm still poor, but when I was really poor, sometime I would get asked to speak somewhere in the world or wherever, and sometimes they put me in first class. It's so funny. You're sitting up there in first class, you're just an old country hick, and after a while, you're like, get the chattel on by past me. Just get them on by past me. You know what I mean? It gets to you. You start to think you're better than them. And you're nothing but a hick from North Mississippi.
Not even South Mississippi.
And you start to think, well, as soon as they get the chattel loaded up, I'll be fine. Well, you one of the chattel. You one of them.
And all of you are lucky to be able to get on a plane and fly anywhere.
Sure.
To be in the sky going at 600 miles per hour or whatever?
To be in the luggage compartment back there locked up. Oh, man. We've wandered badly.
I love the wander. But Dr. Goddard, if there is something that you've learned from this work that you could share with everybody, what do you think it would be?
From my work as an entomologist, one thing I've learned is, because I interact with the public a lot, I have a major part of my university appointment is extension, where you're supposed to extend the science to the people. So I have a lot of dealing with people. Is that we need to be compassionate to people and kind and hear them out. Lots of times they come talk to me about issues, what are bug issues, like the bed bugs, and can't get rid of them. We need to be kind and compassionate to all people. The other thing is that insects and other arthropods are huge and diverse. Like you said, there are a lot more of them than there are us, and they've been around longer than us. And so we need to look at them not from this higher than you, I'm special, you're not. We need to look at them with awe, I think. I think we need to say, this is awesome. And also be inquisitive. Like, there's things about them we don't know yet. There's a lot of things about them we have no idea about, why they do what they do, and that we can learn from them. They can learn from us, maybe, I don't know, but we can learn from them for sure. I think some of E.O. Wilson's work with the ants and stuff talked about that.
I love that. We can't look at them from above. We have to look at them with awe. Those aren't like opposites.
That's right.
They're just totally different frames.
They're just different. It's a different, almost different dimension. It's not a different dimension, but it's sort of looked at in that way helps me.
Yeah.
That curiosity, that childlike awe, we need that. We lose it when we become adults, but we need that. Looking at things like a child looks at them, awe, fascination, and innocence. We need that. And I don't know how you preserve that. I don't know, but we can try.
Thanks to all the humans who helped make this episode. Morgan Levy is the show's supervising producer, and Greg Rippin is our engineer. Peyton Mitchell manages our social media, Andrew Huang composed the music, and James Barnard designed the artwork. You can, and should, follow us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Let's do it one more time.
Humans.